So now that we've seen how Selenium WebDriver works, and the next thing we want to look at is a page object pattern. So if you look at a test or multiple tests in Selenium WebDriver, then this is an example for the calculator. So what I do here is I go to this URL here, then I get the locator by name 1, that's button 1, and I click it. Then I go to the button add and I click it, and then button 4 and I click it. Then I check that on the element with name txt, if I get the value from that, that should be 1 plus 4. Then I click the equal button, and then I check again that same field, and it should be, the value should be 5. And I close my driver. Now what now if this calculator, they make changes to this calculator? They change the names of the buttons. Now this is just one test. But for this one calculator, if I want, I typically have maybe 300 tests, all the different options of the calculator. So I have 300 tests where I use these locators, by name this, by name that, by name that. And now I'm going to change that web page. And I change the names of my buttons. Then I have to update 300 tests. And all these tests have a lot of find elements. So we can do better. We want to do loose coupling. We want to loosely uncouple our tests from the locators on a web page. The web page specific attributes. So that's what a page object is. So the idea is that I have a page, there's a web page that I want to test. Here's my test. There's the test that I'm going to write. Now this web page, typically what we did in the previous examples, our test uses Selenium WebDriver to talk to the web page. So if you take this page object out of this diagram, the test talks to Selenium WebDriver talks to your page. Now we'll put the page object in front here. So now our test talks to a page object. The page object uses Selenium WebDriver to talk to the page. So everything that's page specific, all your locators, all the things you want to do on a web page, you put in the page object in a method. And then you give that method a nice name. So it's also a little bit clean code idea in here. And your test uses these names. So your test becomes now, you write them in English language. And all find element by this and do this, do that, is all in a page object. Why? Because you have only typically one page object per test page, but you might have a few hundred tests for that page. So if the page is going to change, you only have to update the page object, but not the tests. The tests remain the same as long as the pages, that there should not be a completely different page. You should be able to do the same things, only the whole structure of the page might change. The tests remain the same. So it's like a two-step rocket. Instead of doing it all in the test, now we do the page-specific stuff in the page object and all the other things in the test that are page independent. We separate that from each other. So let's look at an example. My calculator has different buttons. So this is my page object, the calculate page object. It needs to know the driver, so that's the web driver here. So I give the driver here in the constructor. And what I can do is all the web elements I want to use in my page object. So I just have a few of them. The one button, the for button, the add button, the equal button, and the result field. And then with add find by, I can specify the locator. So here name is 1, name is 4, name is add, name is text. So here the locators all use name. But it can also be ID is this or XPath is this. So this is a simple way to get fields, get references to web elements. Now this needs to be initialized. We have to tell Selenium WebDriver initialize these web elements. So we have to replace basically this line here with the line one button equal driver.findElement by name equal 1. That's how we did it this way. Driver find element by name add. Now we talk about this one. Driver find element by name 1. We change that now with this. Find by name is 1. Private web element 1 button. So this line here, page factory init element driver this. The driver is the web driver. This is the calculated page itself. What it will do, it will replace this find bys by driver.findElement methods. So that all this one button, the for button, the add button, they really have an instantiated web element. So again, this, if you want to have this to work, you need this page factory init elements. Then I have here driver.get, go to this URL, I just call it open. Open this web page. I also have close, it's driver.close. And then I have here one button.click. And I give it the name click one. So you just give it an English name that you like, that expresses what this method does. It's basically click one. And then what I do is I return, so this click one, I let it return a string. It returns the value of the result field in my calculator. It's there at the top, you see the result field. With my calculator, this is the result field. So if I click 1, it returns whatever is the value here, and it should then be 1. Similar, I have click 4. Click the button and return whatever is in that result field. Click equals. So I click equal, return what is in that value. Click add, do the same thing. And get result, I call it get result. And that is return the result field, get attribute value. Return the value of the top result field. I also have a method, verify calculator result with a string. This is the result I expect in that result field. So here assert that get result is equal to this string that I supply. So again, let's go back here. All what I do here, this doesn't read very well. In this case, this is a simple test. It's just a calculator, and I can see the buttons have good names. So if I read this, if I look very well, I can see, okay, I know I add 1 and 4, it should be 5. But if it's more complex, and it's not a calculator, but it's all kind of fields you have to fill in, and the names or the IDs of that fields, they don't make sense, then you have no idea what this test does. So what we do now is, it looks like clear code. What you do is everything that's not clear, put it in a method that has and in a name, I make clear what I do. Now these methods, they go in a page object. So that the test that I write that uses that page object is very easy to read. So these are now my names, my methods with a good name, what do the actual things on the web page. My test looks now like this. So if we look here at the test here, 1 and 4, I say page click 1, page click add, page click 4, page verify calculator result is 1 plus 4. Page click equal, page verify calculator result 5. That reads very nicely. And if it doesn't read nicely, I change the name of the method. And then it's also much easier to write other tests, because most of the work is done in your page object. Then another test is page click 1, page click multiply, page click 1, page click equal, page verify calculator result is 1. Now to do that, to have that page, so here I have in my before class, have opened the browser. In the after class I close the browser. So that's page.close and page.open. But before I open it, I first have to create a page. So here I always have to get a driver, create the web driver here, and then create my calculator page with that driver. So then I come in this constructor here, create the calculator page. So the page object knows now the driver, and I do the init elements so that these all get real content. Once I have that, I write all my tests. So now, let's say they change the names of all the buttons. They put an 1 in front of it. Now, I have now 300 of these tests. The tests remain the same. Still, I want to test the calculator. But the name of my buttons changed. So what do I have to do? I have only one page object. So I have to change this. There should be in, what did I say? A 1 in front of it. A 1 here, a 1 here, a 1 here. For every button. Maybe only one button changed. So I have to only update that one button. That's the only thing I have to change. The rest remains the same. That's why a page object, you always have to use a page object in your tests. If you don't do that, then your test will not be well readable. So here, small and easy to understand, easy to read. And secondly, your test will be very hard to maintain with changes of your web page. And web pages do change over time. So this pattern, the page object pattern, you always should use. This find by, typically you use this, find by ID is this or name is this. You can also use find by and then how.id using username. That also works, but this is much easier to understand. And then you can do find by ID is, name is, class name is, CSS is, XPath is, etc. Now, the page object you always should use. The only thing you have to be careful about is if you navigate to the next page. So you typically have a page object for every HTML page. Each web page has its own page object. So I have here 3 HTML pages with different page objects. Now, The thing is, this is my test here. The test uses this page object, but at a certain point I click a button that navigates to the next. So I navigate from this HTML page to this HTML page. This HTML page has its own page object. So that means in my test, I want to check if, let's say, that thing with Google, I fill in here in the field, in the query field, I fill in dogs, and then I press submit. Then I get a new Google page with the results. I have a new page object for that. So in my test, I have to get the reference to that new page object. So somebody has to create a page object and initialize it so that the fields are correct again. And in my test, I have to get a reference to that new page object. That's what we're going to look now. It's actually very simple, but it's something you have to do. Otherwise, navigation does not work in your tests. So here's my example. Here I have a simple page where you fill in your name, your address and zip code. You press sign up. Then you go to the server. Server returns, or it might also be an JavaScript page, doesn't matter. But you navigate to a new page. You get now the thank you page. And I want to test if I really get thank you back. So in my test, I fill all these fields. I click the sign up. Then I check the new page, I get thank you back. But thank you, I only get to thank you, that text element, by using a new page object. This page has its own page object. This page has its own page object. So let's see how I do that. So first the login page. I have the login page object. Here are all the fields. First name, last name, address, zip code, and a submit button and the URL here to open. Open, close. And I have the method enter name. So again, I can make a method enter first name, enter last name, enter address, enter zip code. I also, and that's why I use this example, I also can make a method enter name. And in enter name or enter names, I enter the first and the last name. I also can make a method, so here I do that. Here, enter name, I specify the first and last name. And then I say, well, I first clear the first name field and I say send keys first name. And the same I do with last name. Same I do with enter address. I give the address and the zip code. Well, I fill in the address field. I fill in the zip code field. I could also change this to enter form data. One method. Enter form data with 4 attributes. String first name, last name, address and zip code. So whatever I want, whatever fits the best. And then here I have my submit. I come back on the submit later. The welcome page here has its own page object, with, in this case, I'm only interested in the header here. Actually, this web element header, h1, that's this thank you is in the header h1. So I have here a method get header. Give me the text of that header. I also have a method verify header. Verify that this text is written in this header. And I have to close. So now I have 2 HTML pages, 2 page objects. So now I'm going to write my test. So I start with a login page. So here I have my driver. I create a web driver and I say make a new login page with this driver. That's my page object for the login page. I say login page.open, go to this URL, and then I call the test, sign up. What does it do? Login page enter name, login page enter address, and then login page.submit. So fill in the name, fill in the address, submit. But now I navigate to the next page. So now I want to do in my test, I want to verify the header, thank you. But that I cannot do that on a login page. I have to do that on a new page object. Here I call it welcome page. So when I navigate, that method that I call, so I press a button or I do something that navigates, that method, so that this case is that login page.submit, should return the reference to the welcome page. That's what I do here. Login page.submit returns the welcome page, and then I have the welcome page, and then I can say verify the header. So that means in the login page.submit, what do I have to do? It's this one here. I click the button, but I return new welcome page driver. So I create a new welcome page. What does the new welcome page driver do? Here, it sets the driver and it initializes the elements of this page object. So that's how you solve this problem. Anytime you navigate, well, you navigate typically on an action. You press a button or you do something on a page, and that whatever you do makes you navigate. Well, that action on your page object when you navigate, you should create the new page object for that page where you navigate to. And then in your test, that is, you should return that welcome page. And then in your test, here I get that welcome page back. And then I can use it in my test. That's how you solve this problem of navigation and a page object.